I was like, is this a sitcom right now? I was like, what is happening here? Hello there. Welcome to my channel. So we are now in my favorite season of the year, spooky season. And of course, Halloween is one of my favorite holidays, if not my absolute favorite holiday. Now, this channel is dedicated to travel. However, I also want to be able to use this channel to talk about the reality behind traveling, especially if you want to do it more frequently. And so I think this video ties into that aspect because today we are going to be talking about something that I did in order to be able to better afford the different trips I wanted to go on. So last year in 2023, I decided that I was going to find a way to make a little bit of extra money that I could throw into the travel fund for 2024. Now, I do have a full-time job. I'm a librarian, love books, but I wanted to have a part-time job that I could just work a few days a week on the side to make a little extra money. And I decided to go with Spirit Halloween. Now, I got the idea to work at Spirit Halloween from my best friend, actually. She worked there the previous year in 2022, and I had never actually thought to work there before. And once the idea came to my mind, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I love Halloween. It's a part-time job and it's seasonal, which was a really big part of why I wanted to work there. I wanted to just get in, make some quick cash, and then get out. And my friend told me that she had liked working at Spirit Halloween. She said it was a relatively chill job. You get a discount on different costumes and Halloween decorations, and that it's not a lot of responsibility. Now, I had worked many different retail jobs, so I'm no stranger to front-end customer service jobs. So I figured that since I already kind of knew what to expect with this type of work, I should be able to handle it pretty well. However, Spirit Halloween is a very interesting place to work. And I am someone who, when I commit to something, I am dedicated to it. I want to see it all the way through to completion. And so my whole plan was that I was going to work at Spirit Halloween for the entire Halloween season. So I was like fully thinking, okay, this is going to be my job for the next 2 to 3 months. However, as you can see by the title of today's video, this is going to be about my experience working at Spirit Halloween for 10 days. Now, to be fair, it was 10 different shifts spread out over the span of about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. I started after Labor Day in 2023, and then I quit right before October started. So it was a total of 10 shifts, and by the end of that 10th shift, I was like, you know what? I'm good. So we're just going to go ahead and talk about what it was like working at Spirit Halloween, the good, the bad, and the scary. And for anyone who may doubt whether or not I did work at Spirit Halloween, I do still have my apron and name tag. So I swear I'm legit. I was a Spirit Halloween employee. I'm not making this up. So I first want to talk about the application and hiring process. The interview consisted of me coming into the Spirit Halloween store, and the manager asked me how old I was and what my availability was for working. And that was it. That was the interview. Very quick, very easy hiring process. They just hired me on the spot, and I told them that I was available to work evenings and weekends. And so they basically put me on an average of 3 days a week on the schedule. And the job paid minimum wage for my area, which I was expecting. And they put me on to work evenings from 5 p.m. to close. A thing to know about Spirit Halloween is that as you get closer to Halloween, the hours extend. And so eventually you end up at a point where you're going to be working until like 11 p.m. most likely. And I started working at Spirit Halloween when it was not open yet. And honestly, this was like a perfect job for me. I am someone who really likes being able to just work with my hands. And I like just having like a simple task with just simple steps that you follow and just repeating that over and over again. So our job when we first got hired at this Spirit Halloween was to get the whole store ready for opening to the public. So we are setting up the different stands, you're putting out merchandise everywhere, and you're just lugging all these boxes around. You're putting up all the metal hooks and layering them with everything. And I really enjoyed this type of work. It was super chill, and you didn't have to deal with the public yet, which is always I feel like the worst part of working retail. Customer service is like the actual customers. And I will say that I really liked the music that they would play through there. I feel like all the other retail stores I worked at, it's just like John Mayer. Like I'm just not into the music played in like other regular department stores. But here at Spirit Halloween, they would play some good bops. Also, Spirit Halloween has a super catchy theme song. I don't know if you know that, but it would play like every so often during my shifts in the store, and it's a banger.
This is the theme for Spirit Halloween. They got ghouls.
And I also really liked being able to see all the different costumes that were coming out for that year and playing around with the different animatronics they had, because I'm someone who goes into Spirit Halloween just as a customer every single year. I don't usually buy anything in there because, let's be real, it's a little pricey, but I really love going in and just seeing all the different decorations and the creepy animatronics, and it's just so much fun. And it was definitely really fun getting to just open up all these boxes and see all these new costumes coming out, all these decorations that I thought were really fun. Like, it got me in my Halloween spirit, and I just loved that. It just like warmed my little spooky soul. However, I have to say, I think, at least in my particular experience with Spirit Halloween, there were more cons than pros to working there, and they started to pile up relatively quickly. First off, the management at Spirit Halloween, the one I worked at specifically at least, was kind of unorganized. Like, I didn't even know who managers were when I would walk in for a shift. And like, they wouldn't introduce themselves. They wouldn't say like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm a manager here. There was like 5 different managers. I'd see a different one every time I came in for another shift. So like, it would take me till like halfway through my shift to realize that a person I was talking to was the manager and not just another like seasoned employee there. So that was a little confusing. And the assistant manager that I worked under most often, who I got to know, didn't really communicate anything very well. And so my very first shift, he gave me my training, and it was him walking me through the back stock and showing me the boxes and telling me, put these out on the hooks out there. That was just it. It wasn't until I started working under a different manager for a shift and he like walked through everything with me that I even found out that there's an organizational structure to how you're supposed to be putting out the merchandise, which of course, like, that makes perfect sense. But like, in the moment when I was just told like, put all this out on the floor, I was like, okay, so I guess I just kind of put stuff out where I find space and like organize it nicely. I had no idea that like the different packaging has different designs, and that determines like what section of the store it goes in. I like very quickly had to learn how to redo all the work I'd been previously doing because I was doing it all wrong. I will also say, once the store opened to customers, that was when the work wasn't quite as chill anymore. Spirit Halloween attracts lots of teenagers coming in with the sole intentions of just destroying as much stuff as they can and then running out. I'd see a group of like 14-year-old boys coming in, and I just knew it's going to be complete chaos in here for the next 15 minutes. Also, I mentioned really enjoying all of the different Halloween decorations that were up and the animatronics, but that gets old very quickly once you open the store and every single person coming in wants to turn on the animatronics, and then all you hear is a creepy clown laughing with circus music playing just on a loop over and over and over again for like 5 hours. And I remember thinking, like, if there's someone who easily gets overstimulated by noise, this job might not be for them, because holy crap, is it loud in here right now with like every disturbing noise you could possibly imagine all under one roof. So when I started my very first day, we were supposed to punch in, so then you're officially on the clock and then you can punch out. However, for some reason, my employee number was not working that day. And so their solution was to just have me write down my time in this notebook they had, and that they would then manually add my time back in. And so it would show up on my paycheck. So I worked my whole first shift without being punched in and put the time down in the notebook and everything, and then headed out. And luckily, by the time I came in for my second shift, they had fixed whatever the issue was, and I could punch in and out regularly on the clock. However, when I got my first paycheck, I saw that not all of my hours were on there. What a surprise. The first shift that I had worked was completely missing. And so I told the assistant manager. He was like, okay, no problem. I'll make sure those get added on for the next paycheck cycle. And in the meantime, I also, like I said, was working my regular full-time job. And I usually will work one weekend a month at that job. And so I knew there was a weekend coming up that I was not going to be available at Spirit Halloween. And so I made sure to put it in weeks in advance that I could not work this particular weekend. And then eventually that next schedule was coming out, and I saw that there was me on the schedule for that weekend. And I told the assistant manager, like, hey, I put in a time off request a while back. I can't work this weekend because that's my other job, and you need to take me off the schedule. And again, he's super chill about everything. He's like, yeah, no problem. He's like, I'll fix that. I'll get someone else to cover it. Meanwhile, every once in a while, I would work a weeknight shift. But for the most part, they started scheduling me every single Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. I understand that I had given them this availability. However, the way that the staffing ended up working out was just not ideal. They had a ton of people working on like a Tuesday night when not many customers are coming into the store. So I'd be there with like 8 other people. And then the weekend would come around and I'd come in on like a Saturday night, and it was just me and this assistant manager. And I was like, why am I the only sales associate working on a busy weekend? Because everyone came in on the weekends to shop. And his answer was, no one wants to work the weekend. That was it. He said everyone else he hired didn't want to work the weekends, so they didn't put that down as their availability. And instead of continuing to hire until they could get another person who said they would work the weekend, they just decided because I said I could, they would just put me on the schedule, and that's it. As we got through the month of September, it started getting pretty busy in that store. And it's literally me and this assistant manager. And he would be working the cash register while I put stuff out on the floor, except he kept disappearing from the front of the store. He would just be on his phone in the back. And I regularly started having customers coming up to me saying like, hey, we've been waiting at the register for 10 minutes. We would like to check out. Is there anyone around who can help us? And then I would have to go and find him somewhere in the back and be like, hey, there's customers waiting to check out at the front. And he'd be like, oh, okay, get off his phone, go up there, check out their stuff for them, immediately go into the back again and not come out at all to check. And within the next 10 minutes, another person would be coming up to me being like, hey, I've been waiting a long time to check out and no one's up there. Is anyone going to help me? And so it just became like this constant cycle of like irritated customers coming up to be like, why is there no one at the front? And then me searching the whole back of this warehouse. It was an empty Best Buy, trying to find the assistant manager to be like, hey, people need to check out. And needless to say, this was starting to get on my nerves a bit because you gotta be out there, man. I can't do everything out here. As more days went by and I'd come in for another shift, I would punch in and then I'd look at my schedule coming up, and I was still on the weekend that I couldn't work. And so I would tell my assistant manager again, and he would again say, okay, yeah, I'll take care of that. And meanwhile, I also did not get paid when the next pay cycle came around again for that first day. And I was like, hey, also didn't get my money. Is that going to happen anytime soon? And he'd be like, oh yeah, I'll make sure to put that in there as well. And I even talked to a higher up manager and was like, hey, I really need this shift I worked added on to my paycheck. And he's like, okay, I'll make sure that that gets on there. Nothing was happening. It was insane. You could like remind them over and over of the things you needed until you were blue in the face, and like nothing was going to happen. And so a Friday night shift comes along, and it's the night before the weekend that I'm not available to work at Spirit. And I punch in, I look at the schedule for that weekend, and what do you know? I'm still on the freaking schedule. At this point, I had texted and told this manager in person 3 times that I needed him to take me off that weekend, and each time he said he would and never did. I told him like, hey, I'm still on for this weekend. I'm not coming in. Like I've told you multiple times, I have my other job to work. I cannot come in. I wish I was making this up. I didn't show up. And while I was working my full-time job that weekend, I get a text from the assistant manager saying, hey, can you come in and work this afternoon? We're pretty short-staffed. And I was like, I told you 4 times I cannot work this weekend because I have my other job. So no, I cannot come into work this weekend. I have no idea if he got coverage that he needed or if he had to close the store himself, because literally I was the only one on the schedule to work with him for that weekend. But it was just like, I was like, is this a sitcom right now? Like, are you serious? Like, I just told you Friday night, for like the 4th time that I cannot come in. And then you text me that weekend asking if I can come in. I was like, what is happening here? So needless to say, I was definitely reaching the end of my rope by this point. We were towards the very end of September, and I really didn't know if I was going to make it through all of October. And I admittedly was getting tired of having to work every single Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, especially because I was the only sales associate there. And there was a point I was reaching where I was like, do I quit? I feel like this job is starting to cause me way more stress and frustration than what it should be, especially because it's just supposed to be just something to do for funsies, to get a little extra money for traveling. And I am like getting so worked up over all of these little annoying things happening at this job, and the amount of frustration it's adding to my life just doesn't really feel quite worth it, because as you may have guessed, I still had not been paid for my first day of work. And at this point, it had been like almost a full month since I had worked that shift. And the fact that it's like a part-time minimum wage job means that every bit of money you make counts and is like a really big deal, because that's the whole point, is to get every little scrap you can. So I basically decided, as the next payday was coming up, that if my first day's pay was not rolled onto that check, as I had asked multiple times at this point for, I was going to quit. And sure enough, payday came, looked at my pay stub to see all the hours, and they were missing. And so at that point I knew, I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I'm never going to get this money back from them, because the way Spirit Halloween is set up, like there's no way to like be able to complain higher up into corporate. There's actually this like agreement that you sign when you are getting hired by Spirit Halloween that says that you are not going to like try and dispute things with the actual company itself. You'll just handle it with your managers directly. And so like there's literally no one else that you can contact. Like that's it. And if they're not answering you, like, sorry. And so once I saw that I still did not have the money that I had earned from my first day, I just texted saying, hey, I'm not going to be able to work any shifts in October, so please just take me off the schedule. And I never heard back a response. And I never had any contact with anyone from Spirit Halloween ever again. I think maybe I just unfortunately had a not great location, because I did end up checking out a couple other Spirit Halloween stores throughout the season in October, and I was blown away by how much nicer and more organized and well-staffed these stores were compared to the one I had been working at. So I realized like I may have just gotten a dud of a location. So I definitely do not think that like every single Spirit Halloween is going to be a horrible working experience. And it wasn't even that horrible for me. It was just too much disorganized chaos for this type A personality. So that is my story of how I tried to make more money for travel and ended up working at Spirit Halloween for a total of 10 days. So thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.